Hi, I'm Steve from Nearly Wild, and I'm here today with Keith from
Edistone.
And what do you do at Edistone, Keith?
Right, we started the business in 2001 when we bought a woodland up here in Montgomeryshire, not in Herefordshire where we'd originally explored getting a wood, but it was a lot bigger than we'd intended. So instead of being just a piece of woodland that we could play with, it was 70 acres, therefore we had to think of something seriously to work with. And so it is now a fully managed woodland, and we are a significant manufacturer of made-to-measure log stores, covering the whole of the British Isles.
Excellent. So it's an interesting story, and obviously I know a little bit about the background of the company you've established and ended up becoming, really, and also been lucky enough to visit the woods. And you, as I understand it, pretty much manage the trees right the way through the process, right through felling, through conversion and production into a finished product, effectively.
Yes. We don't do any planting in the conventional sense of the word, because the wood, when we bought it, was overstocked.
Right.
And large parts of it remain overstocked as we gradually work through it. So we are doing extensive thinning through the wood, but getting it back into condition. Although we don't plant, the level of natural regeneration is massive.
Right.
And so the character of the wood is changing each and every year as we continue our ownership and management of the wood.
Interesting. So I think it's a very good example of somebody who's really working with the natural system, working with the way that wood's developing and using it for a resource, for a real economic return, but also working with that sort of natural system and the products that are there and developing through the regeneration.
Yes, just as an indication, we fell probably 50 to 70 tons of material a year. So on the face of it, it sounds quite a lot. We're in a steep-sided valley, and we've long challenged the neighbours on the other side of the valley to see whether they can ever tell when we fell trees.
Interesting.
And throughout the time that we've been felling trees, they've never noticed.
Really? Well, that's interesting. So that's, I mean, maybe one for those of you who have a dislike of what's known as commercial forestry and those large felling areas, but not happening in your wood at all.
The canopy remains closed.
Yeah, so a proper woodland.
We think so.
Yeah, lovely. And I know as well, I mean, you've got a very interesting and diverse background, and you're involved in a number of things, including a little bit in tourism as well. And your work and your woodland are both in Northern Powys. That's the northern part of Mid Wales. One of the things that we've been talking to people about recently in Nearly Wild is the whole issue of supply chains and how they work. And I wondered if you had any insights from your experiences, either in the tourism industry side of your work or in your timber work.
If we just take the timber work, we have got relatively short supply chains because, as you mentioned earlier on, we go all the way through from silviculture through to the harvesting, preparation of the timber, the manufacturing of the timber products, and to the sale. So large parts of the supply chain are within our own control. But we are dependent on contractors for helping us to actually fell the larger trees. We only actually start in the harvesting when they're on the ground.
Right.
And with people like fencing, doing ride management, and there we need people that we can rely on. And the reliance is dependent on treating them fairly in the selection process. And when the invoice comes, you pay them the same day.
Right.
And that's been the central tenet of our business, is that we always pay people, not on time, like 30 days.
Yes.
It is always same day payment.
Right. It's really interesting because I know that many businesses in rural areas, particularly reliant on natural resources or working with natural resources, are often cash poor. They're often working for relatively low rates, and the nature of the work is quite demanding and can suddenly mean you lose a few days' work because of bad weather or other things. So these sorts of issues, like the speed of payment and the nature of the supply chain, the nature of relationships becomes very important. The other thing that I was interested in, Keith, we were talking a little bit before we came on camera about the whole issue of reaching out to the people, I suppose, that we're selling to, and some businesses are not so much producing a product as maybe supporting a visitor or whatever it might be. Do you have any thoughts on that and how that might develop?
We sell directly to customers all over the British Isles. The most important things for us is talking to the customer, because each of the log stores that we ship out is custom made. They have got an image as to what it is they are looking for in terms of the design, the sizes, etc. But sometimes when they first contact us, they're a bit uncertain as to exactly what it is they want. The conversation that nails down something that is manufacturable and when it's delivered suits them is actually quite important. But once the specification has been made and a date has been assigned for delivery, we stick to the price, we stick to the delivery date. In 15 years, we have never been late.
Right, that's a real achievement.
And not many manufacturing businesses can say that. But that's important for customer expectation, because it's the customers who've got some hopes about what they are doing in their own garden with the thing that they're buying from you.
Interesting.
And if what arrives isn't quite up to spec, and for whatever reason, it could be a delivery problem, a transport problem, it needs to be fixed extremely fast, because the longer it hangs out, you are undermining their expectation of the fun and the joy they were hoping to get out of it.
Right. Yes, absolutely. Yeah. Another question, really, which is more related to using the experience that you've gained and the knowledge that you've got from many years of working in supply chains, but also in more recent nature-based business activity. If you were working with young people in Powys who were interested in starting up a nature-based business, do you think there's a benefit in networking? Is there a benefit in any form of cooperating? Is there any more that we can do, or are all the systems already in place for people to be able to sort of reach out and thrive and develop a new nature-based business?
I'm convinced that I personally haven't scratched the surface.
Right.
And I work with organisations that work with young people and younger people extensively, and there's a lot of unmet demand out there.
Right, that's interesting.
And because we are so busy in a relatively small business, the best that we can do ourselves is hold open days through the year to bring people in, take them on walks around the wood and show them things that they wouldn't even think are important. Is, why do trees fight each other? For instance, trees fight. I thought they were fixed. You'd be surprised.
Yes, interesting. Yeah. So there's a role for sort of building awareness, maybe through learning from other people who are already running nature-based businesses, but your feeling is there's a lot more could be being done.
Yes.
Yeah. And in terms of the final thought was, you're obviously very experienced in marketing and markets, which I think, to be fair, many people who run small businesses aren't. And I think, I wondered if you have any sort of thoughts on how we could improve that sort of reaching the marketplace for, if these new businesses are starting up or ones that are maybe not so good at it, other ways that we could maybe improve some of that.
I wish I knew the answer to that.
Right.
You may perceive that I'm very good at marketing, and obviously I have got to where I am, but there are times when I feel I hardly know anything at all.
Right. The ever-moving feast.
Ever so, yes.
Yes, yeah. I think it's interesting because maybe one of the reflections I'll just share with people watching is that in our conversations together, we often end up talking about how do you reach the urban public who want to come to somewhere like Powys. How do you maybe use the urban groups and organisations that want the sorts of products that we've got? How do you get them involved so that you almost create these supply chains into the urban areas from the rural areas, but make their relationships? It comes back to your point about the person buying the log box or whatever, the log store. you know, that relationship becomes very important, and we can't just produce brands and put out organisations and say that'll do the marketing. I think you made this really important point of, you know, it's about those personal relationships so often.
Yes,
Yeah,
indeed.
Now, I've really enjoyed this, and I'm looking forward, hopefully, in a future discussion to coming, having a look around your woods again and talking about some of the amazing things that you're up to. Thank you very much, Heath.
Right. Thanks,
Nice
Steve.
to meet you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much for watching. I really hope you enjoyed. If you liked it, subscribe. If you didn't like it, leave a reason in the comments as to why.